Good morning. Welcome to the forecast discussion for August 3rd, 2012. It's Friday and it's my birthday. So that means it's a very special day here at NY and JPA Weather, as I will be celebrating my birthday as I turn 33 years old. Doesn't seem like 33. Very weird. Anyway, let's take a look at the forecast here. We have temperatures already as of 8:21 a.m. in the mid 70s, a few upper 70s in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, and a few mid 60s in your normal cool spots like Messina, for example, in northeastern Pennsylvania. Lower 70s around Allentown, and Reading's already at 75, and of course New York City is around 77. One thing we should notice, though, is that it is very humid out. Very humid. Dew points are already in the lower 70s in many locations, and we're dealing with locally dense fog. I know this morning when I was up starting to set up the forecast, it was very foggy out. And that fog is starting to lift slowly but surely and should lift for most locations by 10 a.m. And thereafter, we can expect scattered cloud cover with temperatures rising into the lower to mid 90s in many locations, especially around the Philadelphia metropolitan area where there is a heat advisory. Closer to the coast, most likely it will be around the upper 80s, and if you're in portions of Connecticut and the Hudson River Valley, look for temperatures around 89, 90 degrees for today. Now, the other threat, besides the rather hot and humid weather conditions, will also be the potential for isolated thunderstorms. And I stress the word isolated here. I do not think we're going to be dealing with widespread thunderstorms whatsoever, but we will be dealing with the potential for those isolated thunderstorms to be rather severe. So let's take a look at the latest radar, and you can see we have already a few isolated thunderstorms located over portions of western and northern New York. This is associated with a cold front boundary that is rapidly weakening and falling apart, but you can see the potential here with these showers and thunderstorms already this morning. They're relatively weak in nature right now, but they haven't tapped into all the moisture-rich air mass that's sitting over the northern mid-Atlantic right now. When we take a look at the water vapor satellite picture, as you know, I love using this water vapor satellite picture for a very simple reason. You can pretty much see everything moving in the atmosphere. You can clearly see our Bermuda High that has set up with a nice southwesterly flow throughout much of the East Coast. You could see plenty of moisture in the atmosphere, and you can see our disturbances associated with the polar jet stream moving from the central Great Lakes due east towards the eastern Great Lakes and, of course, New England. And that's an important observation. What this is basically telling us is that these disturbances are being focused more towards the north. And that means your potential for thunderstorms would be focused more towards the north as well. That's why we're only forecasting isolated thunderstorms for this afternoon, and pretty much this weather pattern will be in place all the way on through this weekend. So we're going to be dealing with the threat for isolated thunderstorms. But because there's so much moisture in the atmosphere, the thunderstorms that do develop are going to be very, very capable of very, very heavy downpours. Localized flash flooding is going to be a significant threat with these thunderstorms. Strong wind gusts will also be a threat because you're going to have all that rain-cooled air in the upper levels of the atmosphere slamming down towards the surface, so do not be surprised if you see some strong wind gusts out of these thunderstorms, frequent lightning, and yes, even some hail. The good news is that these thunderstorms are going to be hard to come by, but the ones that do will cause some problems. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that for this afternoon and this evening, and that's going to be the theme all the way on through this weekend, until this cold front right out here moves through the region on Monday, clearing out this hot and humid air mass, but also producing widespread showers and thunderstorms on Monday, and some of those thunderstorms could be rather severe. So that's pretty much our weather pattern right now on through this weekend. But we do have some interesting developments in the tropical Atlantic I want to go over. First of all, we have Tropical Storm Ernesto that is starting to enter the eastern Caribbean Sea. Ernesto is going to continue to move to the due west and eventually reach the western Caribbean by Monday. We have a strong disturbance over the eastern Atlantic, and this one I'm going to have to keep an eye on. This looks pretty interesting here. And we have a weak disturbance over the Bahama Islands that needs to be watched as well. When we take a look at the infrared satellite picture, first of all, let's talk about this disturbance around the Bahamas. There is a weak trough in place, but there is also a lot of strong shear as strong winds are coming from the southwest over this disturbance. I don't expect much in the way of rapid development, but it's something to keep an eye on as there is plenty of warm water here, and it wouldn't take much to produce a tropical low pressure system that could surprise a lot of people along the East Coast. So we're going to keep an eye on that disturbance. At the very least, it will enhance the moisture advection that has developed along the East Coast and continue to transport tropical moisture into the northern mid-Atlantic. So something to keep an eye on for this weekend. Of course, here's Ernesto. It remains rather disorganized due to some strong shear, but that shear is expected to weaken. Watch out for Ernesto to rapidly start to develop by, let's say, Saturday night into Sunday. By that point, I think we're going to see the potential for Ernesto to really start to gain some momentum and intensify. Right now, the low-level circulation is right around here, and the reason why Ernesto is, well, not very impressive right now is because it's moving so fast to the west at 20 miles per hour that it can't keep the thunderstorms organized around the low-level center because there's so much shear. And you can tell there's shear because look at the clouds here. You have clouds moving in this direction and Ernesto's moving in this direction. So it's basically like a buzzsaw on these thunderstorms. So they try to develop and then they get knocked down. And that's pretty much what's happening with Ernesto right now. That won't last for much longer though, and when the shear starts to decline, watch for Ernesto to rapidly develop, especially to the south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and as it's approaching the Jamaican Islands. So we're going to keep an eye on Ernesto as we move into next week for the Gulf Coast. Finally, as we move all the way out in the Atlantic, we're to the south of the Cape Verde Islands and to the east of the African coast. And this disturbance right here is very impressive. It already has a very well-developed low-level circulation. It's already starting to intensify. I would not be surprised if we're looking at tropical depression number 6 by this evening. And it could actually be a tropical storm by the end of this weekend. We're going to keep an eye on this disturbance. So let's head right back to the northern mid-Atlantic and looking at the model guidance using the Penn State EWAL website with the European model guidance right here. Again, we're dealing with a trough over the east that's going to continue to push disturbances through the region. We're pretty much in between a trough that is going to be centered over the Great Lakes and the Bermuda High Ridge. And that means we're going to continue to remain in a southwesterly flow from the surface to 850 millibars, transporting plenty of moisture and plenty of humidity, plenty of hot, humid air into the northern mid-Atlantic, and also keeping a threat for isolated thunderstorms in the forecast each afternoon. Again, watch out for those thunderstorms. They will be capable of producing very heavy downpours and very strong wind gusts. And if you get impacted by one of those thunderstorms, get inside as quickly as possible. By Monday, a strong cold front will move through, widespread showers and thunderstorms. Some of those thunderstorms could be rather severe. We're going to keep an eye on that cold front for Monday. And then from Tuesday on through Thursday, we're going to be under the influence of a polar high pressure system. Temperatures will remain in the mid to upper 80s, but the humidity will be much lower. So it'll be a lot more comfortable. Tranquil weather conditions can be expected. And those tranquil weather conditions will continue on through, let's say, about Friday. And then we're going to keep an eye on an area low pressure for Saturday, producing widespread showers throughout the region. And notice that this low pressure system is off the coast for next Saturday, which means we're going to be dealing with more of a marine air mass. So pretty much this would be a rain threat, not a severe thunderstorm threat. And that trough intensifies off the East Coast for Sunday, which is something to keep an eye on as we start to see a pattern change start to evolve with more amplification in the Pacific, a ridge in the west, and a trough in the east. Changes are on the way. That is your forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. You can follow the latest weather information at nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter and Facebook. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.